No. All right, so we are in robotics. We are doing some more open SCAD work. My name is Mr. Sindel. Today is Tuesday, March 19th. People that we are missing Brian and Caroline. This video is for you. Who wants to say hello?
Hi, I'm Christopher. I'm here with Mr. Sindel.
What year is it, Christopher?
What year?
Yeah.
We're 2015 over here?
2019 for the time capsule. You'll be looking back at this moment and be like, oh man, remember when I was being really rude to Mr. Sindel? Be like, oh man, I remember that. All right, so far we have this code. This code will be posted on Google Classroom. Chris has basically all that code, but he's missing these two. So if you want to type that really quickly while I'm still talking, Christopher, then you will have all of it. There is a module called Curve, and it basically curves everything.
I already have that.
You already have that? Then you're good.
No, I don't have that actually. You know what, Chris?
All right, so what we're going to be doing today is we need to make this three-dimensional and engrave our name into it, and then we're ready to go. This is all the work that we've been doing. This is a week's worth of work as a class. If you erase it, then you need to retype it. Make sure that it's saved somewhere. Here we go. We're making a new module. We're going to call this module 3D. Module 3D. And be careful. Every single time that you make a module, from now on, always comment the last curly brace with the end of the module. So make a comment using // and end module. This is a comment to yourself saying, hey, this brace corresponds to the brace up here. I know even if you click on it, it'll show you, but it's much easier to just look at your code. Chris.
Wait, I have to have...
You need those four, yes. All right, before we even start typing inside this module, we need to create a new variable. This variable will tell you how thick, how tall, if I'm looking from the side, how thick up and down to make it 3D. Right now this is 2D, which means if I actually render this, it is only 2D. It looks like it has an outline. So if you actually click render, it's only 2D. So if I come back here to preview, it looks 3D, but it's only 2D. We're gonna make it 3D with a linear extrude. Again, if you go to cheat sheet, openscad.org/cheat sheet, we are using this linear extrude. The only thing that we're going to pass into it is a height. Again, you can change a bunch of other things, but we are only going to be passing in one argument, height. So come up here, make a new variable. It's going to be in your dimensions category, your new variable.
Wait, where's that
This is under parameters. Under parameters, you're going to make a new variable. We'll comment it later. The new variable, we're going to call it thickness, or just thick. This thick variable is going to be set equal to 3 for all of us. We might have to set this to a higher value because our actual 3D printed credit card holder has a thickness of 3 millimeters, but is also printed out, or at least layer by layer, with carbon fiber, which is a lot stronger than PLA plastic. So we might need to make it a thickness of 4 or 5. But your comment don't copy me exactly for the comment. My comment here is going to say something along the lines of, this is how thick each piece will be. Something like that. Again, comments can be super long if you want them to be. If they're one line, use these 2 forward slashes. If it's multiple lines, use the multiple line comment, which is /. This is a multiple line comment. That is how you make a multiple line comment, with a /* and end it with a */. So that's how you make a multiple comment line, again, as a review. All right, we all have a variable of thickness. We all have a comment explaining what that thick variable does.
What was the other thing you added before that?
We added a module called 3D with a capital D. 3 capital D. All right, so far, this is what I have in my code. Again, the reason that it's so big, if you're watching the recording of this video, is because people need to see from the very far back.
You added the module 3D. Wait, what did I just do?
All right, so from here, we want to linear extrude our 2D module, our curved 2D module. Again, if I comment this out, if I end up not rendering the curved and I only look at the 2D, it has sharp corners. If I look here, I have very sharp corners. But if I don't render my 2D and I render the curved version of the 2D, I've added curves to everything. That is what we're going to be doing on top of doing a linear extrusion. So inside your module, 3D, somehow figure out how to do a linear extrude and then do your in parentheses, figure out what's going to happen. So something, I'm going to do a comment right here. Don't copy me right now. This is going to be where you're going to do a linear extrude. This code you can copy down. Curve to D with a semicolon. And this you can also copy down. We are done rendering all of our two-dimensional surfaces. We are now only going to render our 3D module. So 3D with our braces and a semicolon. So right now, if I click render, nothing is going to happen because I'm passing a curved 2D object, which is being called 3D. So if I render that, nothing happened. I just clicked it, nothing happened. What you need to figure out now is how to pass a linear extrude command into this module 3D. And if you do that, you should probably tab over that curved version. All right, so I'm going to pause the video, figure out how to do that linear extrusion right now using the cheat sheet. There it is right here, linear extrude. Click on it if you need to read more about linear extrude. All right, so we're back. I'm not giving you the answer, I'm telling you how to think about it. This comment, Martine, is going to be a linear extrusion. If I come back and look at linear extrude, I know that I have to type in linear extrude. I'm just going to copy paste because I'm lazy. The best programmer is a lazy programmer. Linear extrude, and then I'm going to have parentheses here. I don't know what goes inside here. So I'm going to come back and say, okay, the first thing that you pass in here is the height. Well, the height of what I want is the thickness of my part. And we already made a variable up here called thickness. So I can say height right here. I can say height is equal to thick, and that will work. Or I could just pass through thick. Either of those would work. If you don't say height equals thick and you just do thick, then it matters the order in which you put it in. But if, for example, I want to do center equals true and then height equals fan width, I can switch those two. The fact that they're named by saying height equals means you're allowed to switch the order of them when they're being passed as an argument. And again, being passed as an argument is a fancy way of saying they're inside the parentheses. So I'm just going to be lazy and just say thick. And I know that this works because if I change thick to 5, it gets thicker. If I change thick to 3, it gets thinner. I know that my code is working. So far, so good? Our final thing that you're doing today is you're engraving text.
Wait, where did I put that?
This is the answer. You just have to copy this down now. Our final thing is we need to engrave text. That is going to be done inside your module 3D. So right here, you're going to do some text. So I'm going to make a comment. You're actually going to be doing code. Write your code here for text. Don't actually comment. Don't write this comment right now. I see some people typing. Don't actually type this in now. You're actually going to be doing code right here. You're going to be using text. So if I go back here, you're going to be doing text. And text, where is it? Text, there it is. Text is right here if you need to know more about the text. And you're going to be using at least one variable. One variable where you're using text. So when you're doing your code for text, the one variable that you're going to use is writing. Remember that time at the very beginning of class where you said writing equals and then your name? I think, Chris, you might have to change that code. You should have your name inside these double quotes for this variable writing. Writing contains a string. That string is Mr. Math 3. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be passing this variable writing into the function called text right here. Eventually you'll realize that you'll need to make that text 3D, and then you'll need to do a difference. If you want to go ahead and do that because you guys are super smart, then do that. But the final project now is somehow engrave your name right here in the center. That's the project that we're working on. And I will give you a hint in about 5 minutes for the order in which you need to have 3 different commands. You'll need 3 commands in order to, well, actually a total of 4 commands in order to get this to work. Go ahead and try it now. All right, people have been doing good work. What we need to do now, and this is a review for most of you that since you have writing, but we needed to do a text module because if I come over here, I have to type in text. So if I type in text, and then I need to input the text. Well, putting in Mr. Math 3 would work. There's Mr. Math 3. It is in there, but the problem is if I change this writing variable to Mr. Math 2 or Chris, it doesn't change the writing over here. That's a problem. I want to always use this as a variable. So instead of saying Mr. Math 3 here, I'm going to leave this as Mr. Math 3, and I'm going to change this to a variable with no quotes. That variable's name is called writing. Now when I run it, it says Mr. Math 3, and if I change this variable to Chris, it automatically changes the stuff that gets passed through our 3D module. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Math 3. Okay, the problem is if I render this, it goes away because it says it's mixing 2D and 3D objects. What it's telling me right now is this text is 2D, but this linear extrusion of a curve is 3D. You are not allowed to mix 3D and 2D shapes.
Why don't you just put that parenthesis at the bottom or that thing into the text? Oh no, wait, it's already in there.
Yeah, so you're caught up. That's good. So what we need to do now is somehow make text three-dimensional. The way that we do that is the same trick that we use with our curve. Our 2D curve, we did a linear extrusion. So on the line above text, we want to do a linear extrude. The number that you put in here for the thickness can vary. I know Ziri was trying thick. You guys, I think, should probably do thick divided by 2. That's probably the best number to do. That way you don't accidentally engrave all the way through. I mean, you can if you want. It's an aesthetic. It's opinionated. I personally prefer it to be only half the thickness so it doesn't accidentally go all the way through, and it's just a personal preference. If you want it to go all the way through, you can, though. It does make it structurally weaker, though, if you're thinking of it from an engineering perspective. All right. I now need to move it to the right place. I need to move it up in the z-axis, and I need to move it up in the y-axis, right in the x-axis. So before I have my linear extrude, I also have another line. The line above this is going to be a translate. Don't forget your square brackets, and then it's going to be 0, 0, 0. So if I want to move it up, I want to move it up by thickness divided by 2 plus fudge. We'll make it right to the edge of the surface plus that extra little fudge so that I won't have any rendering errors when I subtract it. You will need to figure out a number for your x and y coordinate. This 0 right here and this 0 right here, you will need to figure that out. And if you don't finish in class, it's going to be homework. But I'm still not done because you'll notice it's not cutting away Mr. Math 3 from my object. I'm missing what? What command am I missing? Difference command. I have to subtract my linear extrusion of a curve from my translation of a linear extrusion of a text. So on the very first line after module 3D, I now need to do a difference. If I start a curly brace, my curly brace should end right before the end of the module, right here, and I'm going to say end the difference. What it's doing now, and I'm going to tab all this over. By the way, I just select everything and hit tab. I tab everything over, and now I'm subtracting this text from the object. If I hit render now it is subtracting it. If you want to see it because you lost it, go back to your translate and put a % in front of it and render it again. Now you can actually see what's going on. That way you can translate it. Again, when you're finally done, you will get rid of that % and render it so it is exactly subtracting things. Before I end, as a final note, some of you have writing that is too big. Some of you are writing something that, or you want it to have a smaller font. If you want to change the font, if I come back over here, notice that the second command that you pass through text is the size. By default, text size is 10, which means if I do comma 10, nothing has changed. And I can even prove that to you. If I render that, nothing has changed aside from the fact that I made it see-through. Nothing has changed. If I want to make it a smaller font, I can change this number to an 8. Now it's a smaller font size. I highly, highly, highly recommend you to do this as well. I highly recommend changing your vertical align and your horizontal align. So instead of making me saying highly recommend, literally everyone, copy what I do right now. I'm going to change the horizontal align and the vertical align. This is a good practice whenever you're doing text. Your horizontal align, all one word, H align, I'm going to set that to center. I'm also going to do a V align, a vertical align. I don't know why I had an H in there. Align. I have a vertical line, and I'm also going to set that to center. By doing that, it will center the text, which means every single time that I type in new text, it will automatically be centered in my object. So what you need to do now, the only thing that you have left to do is pick a number right here. You need to choose a size for your text, and you need to do a correct translation, and you are done. We have exactly 9 minutes left of class. Figure out what translation you're going to be doing and what font size you're going to be doing. And just as another note, this font size, it literally corresponds to the height of the letters in millimeters. 8 doesn't mean a font size of 8. It means this text is 8 millimeters tall. If I zoom in, and you can actually see these letters, I should be able to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It didn't come out exactly because I think maybe the Y's that come down and the H's that come above should be 8. It should be a maximum of 8. I believe that's what I read on the Wikipedia. I could be wrong. Martine, re-explain. What is everyone doing right now after they copy all this down?
Finding how much weight to translate it.
And
What size you want?
and what size of the
Font.
font, exactly. All right, I'm going to upload this code to Google Classroom. That way everyone can be working on the same homework assignment.